Is this, you can't. Somebody's gonna sit there and listen.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Sit so you. Got enough chairs for everybody.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very good.
Where's Julie? Is she there?
Yeah, we're both, Tom and I are here.
Oh, hi, Julie. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Okay, good. Well, we got chairs for everybody. Here's what, before we start, Jack, this is my stepdad. My father died in 1994, and my mother met and Papa Jack's first wife died about then, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she died after Jack did.
She died after my dad's name was Jack too. Yeah.
Both of us had been married for 47 and a half years. And now we've been married to each other for 21.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been married for 60 some years, just not to each other.
Right. But it was kind of easy for them because my mother's name is Maureen and his first name, wife's name was Maxine, and my dad's name was Jack, and his name is Jack. So they don't get too messed up on names. What year were you born? Jack, what year were you born? Was it 19?
29.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna pass this around so you can see the date. Well, these are all the students. You can say your name and go around in a circle.
Hi, I'm Hussein. Hi, I'm Samo.
Is it okay if I don't remember all the names?
It is okay.
Sure.
It is okay.
Hi, I'm Sonia. Hi, I'm Ilham. Yeah, I'm Rawa.
Okay. The age you people were you in one of the classes that we had at the school? I was over there, wasn't it in 2012, Marty?
Yes, weren't you over there twice?
You know, because I was, we were teaching the English a little bit.
Right. He was over there. And he was, you had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Deir al-Assad when we
He
were at
stayed in
Al-Ain.
Deir al-Assad.
In at Al-Ain, the school with the,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alain, next to Jamal's
yeah,
house.
yeah.
And because I remember we went to the swimming pool and guys, the guard he warned me because I was turning a flip off the side into the pool. And you weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah, he was a big hit there. It was good. Well, we were going to talk to you about your Air Force time and how you ended up in the Air Force and how you started some of the stuff we talked about yesterday.
Okay, because you wanted to know where I was born.
Yeah, where were you born?
I was born here in Mount Vernon. It's just a small town. We have about 16,000 people now. But yeah, I was born here in the poor end of town. Some people were afraid to walk there, but we were nice people too. And I went to school here, grade school. I was not an athlete. I built model airplanes and they'd say, "Where's Jack?" Well, he's upstairs reading. I like my company pretty well. And I don't have to be with a lot of people all the time. So, and I didn't think I was too smart. And I really wasn't. I have old grade cards and I wasn't a straight A student or doing 100% and everything. When I got to be about 10 years old, I got a paper route and to deliver.
Newspapers to people?
Am I talking too fast, Marty?
Can everybody understand him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And
And
what did you do after you graduated from high school?
well, before I graduated, it was wartime and there weren't a lot of people to work. And I started at about
It was World War II. It was World War II when you were in high school.
yes. And so I got a job working in an auto parts store. And I did that for 3 years or so. After I graduated, another auto parts store had a man quit. So they hired me to be a manager. And I did that for about 3 years. And then the Korean War started. And my brother and we both enlisted with about other 9 or 10 people from Mount Vernon. We went through basic training together, where we learned to march. And my brother was, he's 6'4" or 5". He marched because they're by size. They say cover down. Well, my brother was taller, so he marched 7 guys in front of me. We would write letters home to Dad. And he would say, oh, this is the worst hellhole I have ever been in. They don't feed us as well as we feed our pigs. And so I would write home at the same time to Dad, oh, today we did this and we did that. And it was so much fun. And oh, we had this good stuff to eat. And Dad, gee, they're the same place. He couldn't wait to get out. And I just knew I was going to stay in the service. And about 1950, well, I got married to my first wife, my other wife, first wife, about 3 months after I enlisted. And I was a private no class. I didn't have any stripes or nothing. And guys, you don't make any money. You go to the grocery and you charge stuff. They would let you pay on payday. Payday was not very much. We got an apartment where for part of the pay, in the wintertime, I would put the coal in the furnace. In the summertime, I mowed the grass. But anyway, then I went to Korea. And I got a couple promotions there because I don't know if you're familiar with the rank. Do you have staff sergeant?
I have a list of the ranks here. I wrote a list of the ranks.
Okay, but that was 5 stripes. I came back and was assigned to Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., I decided I wanted to be an officer. And but I didn't know if I was smart enough to do that or not. But I applied and I got selected and went to Texas for 6 months to become a second lieutenant. That's with 1 little gold bar. And when I was in OCS, they had an opportunity to sign up to go to flying school. And I really was not smart enough. I'll never be able to do that. And but it was kind of automatic that everybody who signed up got picked. It was the start of the Cold War and they wanted pilots. And so I got selected. But I thought, oh gosh, I'm going, all these people in college that have been to college and people from the military academies, those guys are really all smart. And I didn't know how I would do. But the first place I went, the instructor I had, it was like flying with your dad. Some of the instructors, they would chew you out and tell you how dumb you were, that you were going to kill yourself and what were all your kids do and your wives. And oh gosh, but my guy was so nice. And the first airplane we flew was a Piper Cub. It only had about 100 horsepower engine. And you were supposed to solo that to fly by yourself in 10 hours. Some people
10 hours of training.
10 hours of training, yes. in the airplane. I took 16. I thought I was going to wash out and not make it at all. But I finally did. And then we went up to this airplane. It had a 600 horsepower engine. Oh, that was pretty good. And if you're in the States now, there are places that you can get a ride in that. They will say a World War II airplane, and for $500, they will take you up for an hour. Oh, wow. It might be fun, but I'm not going to spend that money to do that.
Jack, tell them about what you like to do with your Piper, with the
Oh,
little.
no, not with the Piper.
Oh, okay.
That comes next.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and after 6 months with these two airplanes, that's called primary. We went down to Laredo, Texas, and we flew a little engine airplane, and for about two or 3 weeks to check out to learn to fly that, and then we went to a T-33. A jet engine airplane. And, I guess, yeah, okay. Used to, I didn't shake like this, but I'm nervous talking to all you people. And after 4 hours in this airplane, they gave me one. And I always thought, gosh, I'd like to ride in one of those sometimes. They gave me one for by myself. And now you start out basically just to learn to handle the airplane and stuff. And after you have about 40 hours or so, they start acrobatics. And oh, that was so much fun. With this airplane, you raise the nose just above the horizon, and then you take the stick and you bang it to the wall. And it starts to turn like this, rotates. And after it goes about 6 or 7, 8 times, the nose comes through the horizon and you stop. They call that an aileron roll. The aileron rolls are out on the ends of the wings. Have you had any aerodynamics at all in school?
No.
No, some high schools, they have aeronautics. But as Marty said, you guys and girls are not going to be allowed to fly.
Well, not in the Air Force, and it's very hard to get a pilot's license if you're Arab. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
With the one with the big tip for the airline.
Yeah.
Oh, it is so expensive. You're going to be up in the hundreds of thousands of dollars if you want to fly for the airlines.
Right, because you have the military here is where people get the flight training so they can become airline pilots.
Sometimes if you can have a private license.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that is expensive because of the price of the gasoline and to rent the airplane and stuff.
It's like
And the license itself, it's so expensive too.
$400 for just flying in a small jet.
Mhm.
Like you need to be so rich to do this.
Right.
Well, flying is kind of a glamorous job.
Mhm.
It sounds nice. People like to see you with this, and you got the wings and all. But about 95% of the time, it's the most boring place you have ever been. You just sit there and watch it go.
You answered me a question I wanted to ask you.
See, like, eventually, I got into this airplane, and the dashboard of it looks like this. You got all these gauges.
Can you hold it up a little higher, Jack?
Yeah.
Yeah. See all these little things, all the little points are at all the gauges, the little dots. Like
You have those, and you sit there and watch that. And then all along one wall, you have switches knobs, all kind of gadgets that you're supposed to watch, lights that blink on and off, and things like that. And but then we have an autopilot so that it's automatic, and you just sit there and watch it go. The only fun you really have is to take off and land, and that's when you really get a chance to fly the airplane. And a lot of that now is automatic also, that you just flip a little switch and it flies to some stuff on the ground and you're all set. But now I'm talking about men flying. Women in the United States are in the Air Force too, and they have pilots, co-pilots, navigators. Some airplanes, transports. Well, there are women fighter pilots even, but they didn't think women should be flying fighter airplanes to be able to shoot other people down to kill people. I've been blessed. I've never had to fire a gun or drop a bomb at anybody, on anybody. So
Tell them what the airplanes you flew did. What did your airplanes, what was
it was electronic countermeasures, they called it. For radar, well, I had a friend in one of the airplanes that he could monitor any ground signal. And when they were coming home after a night flight, channel 10, he would flip a switch and it would jam the radar and or jam the TV signals, and his wife will see he's on the way home. It would just blink on and off, and they thought they had a problem. But we could jam all radio signals, radar signals, anything you tune into.
You would cause interference with the signals, like somebody was watching TV and then it would go.
But it'd only go once.
Okay.
Because if they ever caught him, ooh, that would be bad. We were up and basically we were operating against military stuff, but radar, we knew the Russian radar. There's one to intercept people far away. And this little sound of whoom, whoom, whoom. Well, we knew what that radar was, and but we knew all the frequencies and the channels that they talked on the radio. And again, they had those planes like the U-2 that got shot down. But I was stationed in Spain for 3 years, and I flew to Tel Aviv one time. And that's the time I got to see the country, but there were certain rules that we had to get to the coast and fly in at a low altitude. But gosh, I could look out and here's these little square houses with the flat roofs and things. And it was fun. The only thing is, in my passport, they had to stamp on a little piece of paper that we had been to Israel. And so that I could take that piece of paper out if I ever went to if I wanted to go to Egypt or someplace else.
So Jack, tell them about being in Strategic Air Command. I have it here. This was against the nuclear threat from the Soviet Union. And you were stationed in Columbus, right? Ohio. Yes.
And we would be on alert, they would call it, for a week at a time. And
where did you live?
Well, we called it the mole hole. A mole is a little animal that lives under the ground. They had built what we call the mole hole. It was a big mound of dirt, and we had metal entrances into this. It was bomb-proof, fireproof, whatever. We had the best cooks in the world. We could go, we had our own truck for the crew that we could go any place on the base that had a horn, in it. They called it a klaxon. And we could go to the PX.
PX is a store.
Yeah, a clothing store. Yeah, where you could buy snacks or anything you wanted. We could go to the gym. We could go to the movies, but we couldn't go home.
How fast did you have to get in the plane? How fast would you have to take off if the klaxon went off?
15 minutes. So the airplane was already set up. They had plugged in the thing to start the engines. And you go out, and I told Marty, the worst part of flying one of these airplanes was to climb the ladder to get in. I am afraid of heights. I just, that was shaky. And it was a little metal ladder, and you were not supposed to wear a wedding ring. One guy, one time, he slipped and fell, and the ring caught on the ladder, and it took all the skin off his finger. And so that hurts. And so they didn't want us to do that. And but
So that was the B-47, right?
that was a B-47. You will see, you'll see one of those. And we had a wingspan. I think it was 112 feet, something like that. And the airplane, when we took off, it weighed about 200,000 pounds. The runway had to be 2 miles long. And but you don't use all of that. You have it would be 9,000 feet. I can't compute into meters that fast.
How high did they fly? How high in the air would they fly?
Well, we were usually about 28 to 35,000 feet, something like that. But we had to take off.
Safe? Were they safe? Were they safe planes?
Oh, not really. But well, we had to be off the ground in 15 minutes because from the early warning, if the Russians were sending a missile over here, we know they're going to be here in about 30 minutes. And they detect them after they're taken off. And so if we don't take off in 15 minutes, we won't get off. And so you have to learn to get to the airplane fast and get out, and you're the taxi out to take off. And we were at Lockbourne. We also had a group of airplanes that went to England. And we were at different places in England where every week 4 new airplanes would go over, and they were at different bases in England. I've flown over across the Atlantic several times. Lindbergh, his airplane is in the museum, but no, it's not. We only have military airplanes where you're going to go. But Lindbergh, he's famous for flying across the ocean. And I've flown across both oceans. And there's a bunch of water out there, and you never see any boats or anything. But
How long could they stay airborne?
Oh, how long could how long could your plane stay in the air? How long could you stay up? Could you fly all the way to Russia?
We did.
no, we would refuel.
Used to do that.
Well, if we were in England, yeah, we could go all the way to Russia, what we were doing. From Ohio, when we flew to England, well, we refueled up over Newfoundland just before we would coast out. And we flew, we had jet engines, tankers eventually. But when you refuel, well, they asked how long it would go. Probably till tanks dry, just about 8 or 9 hours. We had, like on this airplane, they call it flat plate area. This thing, when it was brand new and clean, so wheels up, it had a flat plate area of about 2 square meters. That's about the size of the outside door in the room where you are.
So what does that mean?
It's like they're pushing you. Each one of these engines had about 6,000 pounds of thrust. So 36,000 pounds is pushing that door.
Oh,
That's flat plate area. That's what they call drag. They put these tip tanks on to carry 10,000 pounds in each one. It'll see with the orange piece,
47.
there were two of those of 10,000 pounds each. And when they're on the airplane, that reduces the range 11%. We had a thing on our airplane, and since it was ECM, we had little antennas stuck in down every place.
Oh,
Have
ECM is
radar,
electronic something. What does ECM stand for?
electronic countermeasures.
Countermeasures.
And they reduce it another 12%. So usually if we were going to war, we would have dropped these tanks off. You can just pull a handle and there's a parachute comes out the back and they're gone. But
So tell them about the wings on the B-47, the wings.
okay, I will in just a minute here.
He's got it together.
Well, with the fuel tanks out here, there's a weight and balance on the airplane.
You don't want to.
There is a center of gravity right through the middle about where the center of lift is.
Oh.
Okay. The center of lift. If the center of lift is ahead of the center of gravity, the nose wants to go up. There was fuel the whole length of that airplane. We had to compute that and figure all the time to make sure that the airplane is still going to fly. So we would go behind the tanker, and at night or a little bit hazy, you swear that you're pulling up and you're turning over. It's an odd feeling, but you have.
Are you talking about when you refuel while you're in the air?
While you're refueling, yeah, in the air. And
So there's a plane up there with gas in it, and Jack's plane comes up and refuels out of that plane.
you're about 17 feet back. And but it seems like you're turning over and stuff. It's really a hairy feeling. But that guy is flying, so you're still flying too. And
So, but you like doing that, you told me once.
oh yeah, that's the only time you're flying. But if we didn't refuel, it would probably go with 6 to 8 hours or something like that. Like I was going to England one time, and I was just ready to descend to land, and they said, "Go to your alternate." Oh, because then I talked to some guy later on. After he'd landed, he couldn't see the wingtips. There was so much fog and rain. And so I had to go to France. That's a long ways away. And we were supposed to have tailwinds. They forecast you have enough fuel to get to an alternate. We were supposed to have tailwinds. We had headwinds. And we weren't going to make it. We called up and said, "Hey, get a tanker up for us." And so we had a tanker, and I read someplace just the other day, there was 6,000 pounds of fuel left, which is roughly 500 gallons. Now that seems like a lot, but in this airplane, we would have been, I don't know.
How many minutes is that, do you think?
Oh, not enough, about 15 or 20 minutes. When I got behind the tanker, I read someplace the other day, we had 6,000 pounds left. And, but it was a 4-engine propeller thing that we had to descend to 14,000 feet. So this thing, and I said, "Oh, we're at the end of the track. I'm going to turn." Wait a minute. I said, the lights, no flow lights are blinking on and off. There's little lights that we have on the dash that will say when the fuel's not running. And so that flight lasted 16 hours. And that's a long time. So normally most flights that we were flying were about 6 to 10 hours, something like that. But, okay.
Oh, are you going to tell them about the wings of the B-47s?
Oh, they move. The wings are like this, and they move up and down 17 feet, which is about 6 meters. And they fly by themselves, and you hit a little turbulence and they flap some. My first ride in the airplane, I flew with an instructor pilot. He was an instructor pilot, and we had gone and spent the night someplace in California. And on the way home, he said, "Jack, would you want to get in the front seat?" I said, "Okay, that'd be fine." And so we came back, and he let me fly the airplane. He played co-pilot. And coming up on Texas, you don't really have big thunderstorms in Israel, I don't think, or tornadoes and stuff like that. But over Texas, because of the hot ground and the lifting, they have thunderstorms that go 60 and 70,000 feet high. Our airplane, that tops that you can get, is about 38 to 39,000 feet. So you slow down to have a penetration airspeed, because in a thunderstorm, side by side, some air's going up, some is going down. There can be rain and hail or anything like that in a big thunderstorm. So Frank asked the navigator, "Can you steer us around any of these cells?" "Oh yeah." Well, there's a penetration airspeed, so we slowed down, but you're starting to get into the mist and stuff. This airplane is going so fast that you start to get little trickles of light. It's the friction. It's like little, rivers of lightning. And they say, turn on the lights. That's part of the checklist, turn on the lights to go through these things. You didn't have to turn on the lights. The whole airplane glowed. As far as I could see ahead, there was a lightning strip. I looked out once, and in between the engines, there was lightning going back and forth. And the wings were flopping at that full 17 feet. I only looked out once. And because we had lost airplanes that flew through thunderstorms. Pilots who have flown through thunderstorms do not fly through thunderstorms. I never went that close to another one. So you can always call with the ground or something, say, "There's a thunderstorm ahead, vector me around. Give me a heading," and they would turn you around, or you could do it yourself. I'm changing direction.
So, because you said that there were, you had how many planes there were, how many B-47s, and how many?
Well, they built over 2,000, and you're going to see one today. I guess you're going out to the museum.
We are.
And 200 of them crashed. The wings came off of some of them, and I lost some good friends. And
No, Alan here is asking if you ever flew B-52s. Because we can talk about Vietnam now, because he was in Vietnam, but.
No, I knew I had been in SAC, and when I was in Thailand then, for a year, I went and I said to the office, I went in to see this sergeant, and I said, "Say, I plan on retiring. you can't do that. So it's a year to retire. I said, I was in SAC. I don't know. I will be going to B-52s. I said, and he said, I don't care. You can't put in for a year. I said, I want to make my wishes known. Okay. In about 2 months, he came down and I was accepted for retirement. And I did get an assignment then, because it hadn't gone all through the works yet, that I was going to go to B-52s to fly them. And the thing is, I was coming up on 20 years. I wanted to retire. When you give all those years to the service, you give up birthdays, celebrations, holidays, you're gone. And I thought, well, I've done that and I had fun with that. But if I go to a B-52s, it's one-on-one training, and that is expensive. And that you have to sign up to do 4 more years. That would have been fine. I would probably had a couple more promotions, but I just didn't want to do that. So you'll see a B-52. You've probably seen pictures of them, but when you go through the museum and you look at this thing, you don't know how it flies. And the one they have on display was in Vietnam. It was all shot up. And fuel was running out every place. They landed in Vietnam someplace, and that airplane that's there has been rebuilt practically. You will see pictures in the, or if you get enough time to walk around and see that. But it's big. You kind of wonder how it
You
would
want to
fly.
show me your picture?
Hmm?
What did you, so you flew the radar jammers in Vietnam too?
Yeah, and well, at my last flight, we called it EOT, end of tour. Last flight has a bad connotation. And so the end of tour, you land, you taxi off the runway, you fire.
Drop it a little bit so we can, okay, we saw your face. Yeah.
A fire truck meets you and they hose you down and they bring a bottle of champagne. I said, I don't want champagne. I don't drink. I tasted beer once and you have to learn to like it. That's awful. No, I said, I want a Coke. And they come up, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And that's why they took the picture. This is a Coke bottle here.
Oh, how funny.
And so that was that. And
That airplane is in the museum.
oh,
Yeah, one of the ones.
The actual
that type of airplane, just behind the B-47 or the B-52, kind of catty-cornered behind it.
What's the number of that? What's it called, that plane? Because you flew that actual plane, right?
Yeah,
The actual
it's
plane
there, but you can see how big that was a RB-66. And it's, oh, I forget the number. I was trying to find it. It's because I have it in a book, but I think it was 470 or something like that.
Which is the one that you actually flew that's in there? This one?
No, the one I actually flew was in training down in South Carolina.
What is it? What's the number of it?
I think it's whatever the number is, the wheel is down and it's on the inside of the door. I don't really remember. I think it's 470, but I only flew that airplane for about 4 hours.
Okay. It wasn't your close friend.
Oh, no.
Tell your story about flying over Vietnam and the all the jungle and.
Oh, okay. In Vietnam with this airplane, we refueled quite a bit, but okay. But at night, you fly along. We were usually around 28,000 feet is what we flew. And we had a rumor once in a while that the North Vietnamese had moved in 100 millimeter cannons and the aircraft. 100 millimeters, you're familiar, they're about that big around. And to fire 100 millimeter round is heavy. It takes a lot of gunpowder to push it up to our altitude. And so every once in a while at night, if some of the fighters and things, they're dropping flares to light up the ground. So to see things, well, I would see just a flash. Well, a flash, 100 millimeters, it takes it 28 seconds to get to 28,000 feet. And so one of those little gauges that we have on the dash is a clock, and they have a sweep second hand. I just check that, and if 28 seconds, nothing happened, they weren't aiming at me, or maybe they don't have it. So anyway, and flying over Vietnam, out in the jungles at night, you see these little squares all lit up. Your friend there who was in Vietnam may have been in one of those little squares at night. I don't know. But I would look down and it's all brightly lit. And think, oh, those poor guys down there on the ground. You think you're having high humidity in Dayton now, it's hot. It's not hot, and it's not that high a humidity. In Vietnam, and I'd look down and think, oh, those poor guys, they're in the Army or the Marines, and they're in that hot, miserable weather, and they're going to be there for a long time. In an hour and a half, I will be back to my base. And being pilots, you have a little, they look out for you. We had a house trailer, a duplex house trailer. It was long, probably about 40, 50 feet long. I had an air-conditioned end on that. There was another end on it. We had a hot shower and a bathroom. I had a refrigerator, and it was air-conditioned. I had a piece of cardboard in the window of it so that I could sleep in the daytime for when I was flying at nights and stuff. And there was a house girl that came by every day that made up the bed, did the laundry, did your wash your clothes and stuff. And I thought, well, what? I'm going to be back there in an hour and a half. And there's these poor guys out there in the jungles. Ask him, were you in one of those back there in the middle?
I was down in the Mekong Delta. So no,
Oh.
I was not up north. I was down in the Delta.
Mekong Delta.
Okay, yeah. But he was still in the hot and humid weather.
Oh, yeah, no question about that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those mosquitoes were as big as your B-47.
Okay. Hey, well, I've gone on for a long time here, Marty.
Yeah, we'll see if anybody has any, it's all really interesting. Let's see if anybody has any questions.
You know, I wanted to say to start with, I can stop anytime. It's not an interruption.
Okay.
This is not a whole, really a
Question.
planned outfit.
They do like psychological testing of people who wanted to be pilots to make sure that they could handle it?
Well, that's part of the training of when you go through flying. When I was in basic training, we went to through the T6, and there was one guy got scared. And when you get scared, you start to breathe faster. The adrenaline starts to flow. And so sometimes when you're with your girlfriend or you put your arm around her, she gets scared. She starts to breathe faster. And when you breathe faster, your ears can start to ring and you think, oh, this is true love. It's not. You hyperventilate. And this guy, he hyperventilated, and the secret is if you just hold your breath. You can hyperventilate when you get some dumb class that you're going to after lunch and you get sleepy. Breathe deep, fast, and you can't close your eyes. You can hear bells ring. This guy could not talk even. And they knew where he was, and a body flew beside him and told him to hold his breath. And when he landed, he signed up and got out of the program. He didn't want it anymore.
Right. Right.
Now in the T6, when I was, after about 60 hours in the airplane, you're going to get 120 total. You do acrobatics. And you rock the wings both ways, and you look around to make sure you're not going to hit anybody. You put the nose down, pick up 180 knots, and if you're going to loop, you go up and around. I got about here, and the airplane starts to slow down. The horn blows because the gear is not down. Then the engine quit. And I'm going to slide backwards. The tail's going to break off. And I'm going to have to jump out of this thing. All the dirt's falling off of the floor around you. And guys, you kind of get a little apprehensive. But then the nose dropped down through, and the propeller started to go. The engine quit. The propeller started to go around. The engine started. For the next 5 minutes, I did not bank the wings either way. And I said, I don't want this to happen again. But I thought, I'm going to have to go through this. So then I practiced, and you have to pull G's. G's is the amount of gravity that they have. And so that keeps the gas in the bottom of the tank or in the bottom of the carburetor. And I didn't voice out.
So you have to practice those so you know what the plane can do and know not to panic in certain situations.
Yes, yeah. And so, part of the psychology, I think, is part of the instructors where they're chewing you out all the time to tell you how dumb you are. So you have to be psychologically fit, about to be able to do that.
Mhm.
But you don't have to be smart.
The same most risky thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Osama wonders what's the most risky thing that you did?
I don't know if at the time it doesn't seem risky. It's like when you line up in the B-47 to take off, you are apprehensive, not afraid. You go through the procedures of, if there is an engine failure, what do I do? You know, there's a switch up there you pull, and you push another button, and you do these things. You go through those emergency procedures.
Look at these books, show them the books.
So, yeah. Like here is the checklist book. These are the operating procedures. The book like this with all the red outlines, those are the emergency procedures. You almost have to memorize all of this, but then you have it in the airplane so that you can read it. If you have a co-pilot, he pulls that switch thing out and will read it to you. So I don't know of ever being really physically scared.
You have time to be scared.
Everything he walked in the wall, basically. So everything they did was dangerous.
Yeah, here, when you were here in Strategic Air Command, that was, you know, when there was a nuclear threat on both sides. So they knew at any point there could be and they called it mutually assured destruction, right? That one side wouldn't attack the other
Yeah.
because they know that they both end up destroyed. So, and then in Vietnam, it was, riskier, I think, directly. But I
Yeah.
mean, we really thought, you remember as kids going, we'd have drills at school where we go into the gym or whatever, hide under desks from nuclear bombs, which is kind of silly. If you think about it,
And see, for nuclear bombs, you see, the bottom of the airplanes are painted white. And they say that's, well, I don't know if this is a secret or not. It's a special paint. If you're close to where a nuclear bomb goes off, they are hot. This paint smokes. It leaves off smokes and it makes a layer between you and the ground. And so that the airplane doesn't get hot. It's like a cloud all around you.
Wow.
Huh.
But it's not being afraid. You fly in the simulator all the time. And you fly and you can have these things go wrong so that you know what to do in an emergency.
How many total hours of flight time?
How many total hours of flying time did you have?
I have over 3,000.
And where would that put him at retirement with everybody else?
Where did that put you at retirement with other people?
I don't really know. I just never really kept track of the time. People with that are in the cargo business, transport,
Must have a lot of hours,
they get a lot of hours.
right?
We had to get 4 hours a month to get our pay. Sometimes when we were on alert, like in England, I didn't get 4 hours in a month.
Mhm.
So you don't get, well, at the time it was $100 for a month. It's more than that now within.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, say you've been 45 minutes now, Marty.
Now, you have any other questions?
Like if he wasn't flying above in the air, what was he doing?
If you weren't flying in the air, what were you doing during a day?
Ready to fly.
Some people play golf and some people go fishing. To me, you only have so much money and you can't do it all. I bought a saw and I bought a hammer and I make sawdust. Maxine, my first wife, said I had an order of love. I loved the airplane. I loved my saw. Her and the kids were next. So I went down in the basement and made a lot of sawdust, and she thought I should be going someplace with her and the kids. So
That's great. Did you fly, did he carry any people of prominence around?
Oh, did you carry any famous or prominent people around? In Spain?
No.
Did-
in Spain, there was a colonel who had been the pilot for John Kennedy. And I have a picture of when Kennedy or President Johnson was being sworn in the airplane. And this, I forget his name, but he's there in the background. But when they got a new president, he was no longer in charge of that. Oh, but when you see the president's airplane, they really try to take care of the president. There are on the back of a couple engines, there are cylinders. They have things in there that put out little strips of tinfoil. It's like a jammer. They have, or they put out flares. You've seen some tankers, I'm sure, pictures where these smoky things are going down. they are hot. So if somebody is firing a missile at the president's airplane, maybe it will chase one of these drone things. On the side of the airplane, do you know what a scimitar sword looks like?
The long,
Big curve.
the long curved sword.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
curved thing, kind of like this. It's narrow, but on the president's airplane, there are several of these little scimitar things along the bottom. Those are jammers. That's somebody in the airplane. If somebody's searching on radar and they're trying to fire a missile, these little scimitar antennas, and they're only maybe about this high, but there are several, and that's an
Oh, a
electronic.
It's like a sword that looks kind of like this.
Yeah, it's a kind of a half of a U shape, and
Yeah, it's a big sword.
Oh,
you got a picture?
Yeah, yeah.
I drew a picture, a sad picture, but we can look it up here. Yeah. Yeah, SCIMAPAR.
Up higher there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, like that, yeah. So
And
you'll see those
see those.
at the president's plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, do you have anything else you want to tell them, Jack?
I've told them more than I wanted to tell them already. I didn't know, because, yeah, we don't.
Do you have a question for us, Beth? That's a good question. Do you have a question for the kids?
Well, have you enjoyed your stay so far?
Yeah.
Makes a short tour, doesn't it? Yeah, you're going to have a quick trip to the museum. If you try to read every sign that's in there, you get halfway about through the first building and they're closing up. So you have to go fast and just look at some things. I would really recommend going maybe to the presidential airplanes first, because they have a space shuttle there. It's full size. It's not a real shuttle, but they've made it up, and that's the way it is. And that's interesting. And outside of that, of the app, there are 3 or 4 simulators that you can fly the shuttle like you're coming back for a landing. They have a thing that looks like an airplane there. If you look, it only goes up and down and it turns each way. Doesn't seem like, but you go in there and sit down, you want to hang on because you feel like you're upside down. They move the seats. Well, I don't know if they move the seats, but the whole airplane is moving, and you have this sense that, man, you're doing some hairy stuff. It's a fun ride. I hope you get a chance to do that too.
Yeah, we'll do the ride if the rides are open. They're very fun. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're a good audience.
Thank you so much, Jack. Thank you, Julie. Julie and Tom, stick your faces in.
Hey, this worked out better really than I expected. I've never done this before.
Good.
You're a natural, Jack.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should hire out and start doing this. Yeah.
And Julie's there too somewhere. I don't know. She's hiding.
She just walked by.
And Julie said that they didn't know all this stuff. Their dad would go away for a week at a time and live in the underground mole. And I mean, they didn't know what he was doing.
We were little and we didn't even know what he did in Vietnam until recently.
Oh.
He never talked about it.
If it hadn't been for her, we wouldn't have been doing this. Because these things come up on the screen. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm not into electronics. I used to teach school when they started going into all this electronic stuff. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm old. I have a But I have a
Thank you,
bad, atti-
Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
no, I have a bad attitude. I don't want to learn. And so,
Jack,
Right.
you have a cell phone?
no, I have not a smartphone. I just got a little flip kind.
He won't let me
He
get it.
doesn't answer it.
I know. I want him to get a smartphone, but it
He
was
has
easy.
email. He has email.
I think it would be easier for him. I can't even run that old one he's got.
So he's 93 now?
93.
Well, thank you, Julie, for helping us with the technology stuff.
Thank you, Marty.
Well,
Oh, yeah, thank you, Julie.
people thank me for the service, but I thank them for paying me. And every month, there is a check in the bank. They are still paying me.
The military? Well, you did.
Yeah, retired military.
Good investment, a good investment. Okay, Jack, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.